Welcome to the applicant webinar for the $1 Million Community College Challenge. We are so glad that you signed up to attend today's webinar. And this webinar was designed to answer some key questions around the application content and process. If you have not done so already, we strongly encourage you to download the application and read it thoroughly. And I promise you, we will remind you of that throughout the webinar today. And I am Shauna Davis. I am the Strategy Director for Community College Participation here at Lumina Foundation. And I'm joined by my colleague, Strategy Officer Mary Lappin. And our focus on strengthening participation at community colleges is based on our desire to support community colleges in finding ways to connect with the millions of Americans who need a college degree or short-term credential. And joining us today are our partners, at Noetic Consultants. That is Annette Tully, Madeline Santa, and Alexandra Perez. And Noetic is a marketing and leadership consulting firm where they specialize in consumer research, brand strategy, and marketing to help organizations strengthen their brand from the inside out. They will provide some of the technical support that you've read about in the application, and they will provide an overview today of branding, and marketing to help you think about answering the application questions. And as a reminder, our goal today really is to just highlight key points of the application and answer any questions you have before you submit that application for your college. We just don't have the time to go through the application section by section in great detail. So again, if you haven't already, make sure that you read the application thoroughly because many of the questions you might have right now could be answered by reading that application. We will frame a few key areas and then we will leave plenty of time, about half of the time today, to answer any questions that you have. However, if you have questions, remember, of course, to put them in the chat box. But if you have questions that are directly related to your school's eligibility or something that's very specific to just your school, we're going to ask for you to email those questions to challenge@luminafoundation.org. And you can see that on your screen. That's challenge@luminafoundation.org. We are highly responsive to that inbox and ask you again, because we only have a limited amount of time, any questions related to your school's eligibility, to please put that in that email address, send that to that email address, as well as any other questions that might be very personal or specific to the context of your institution. All righty. Now I would like to introduce Annette Tully, who is the Senior Consultant at Noetic, and she's going to talk about our first topic, the importance of brand.
Thanks so much, Shauna, and thank you for having Madeline and Alexandra and me here today. And hello, everyone. In the work Noetic does, we are often asked, what is brand? What does that really mean? We love this quotation you see on the screen because it really does sum up what brand is. A brand is not what you say it is, it's what other people say it is. When developing one's brand, it is critical to see yourself through the eyes of who you serve and not your own. Brand building is the set of actions an organization takes to establish and differentiate itself in the market and to connect with their audience. So when building a brand, we should first know the difference between brand, branding, and marketing. These three terms are often used interchangeably because often the marketing department in an organization works on all of them, but they are quite different. I'm going to use a made-up organization to demonstrate. Let's call it Noetic Community College. Said another way, brand is the totality of people's thoughts, feelings, experiences, memories, relationships, delivered at each and every touch point and experience. So when building a brand, you do all of that with the audience at the center of everything that you do and to support the business goals your organization has. And when you do this, brand becomes part of your school's DNA. Think about this for a moment. If the photograph you see here bottom right represents how these adult learners feel about Noetic Community College and their experience, how do you think Noetic Community College should show up as students walk the halls? You know, what would you expect to see around them? Or maybe when a student calls Noetic Community College for information, how should that phone call feel to them when they hang up? Or when a prospective student sits in on a class, how should that class experience feel for them if the brand, the feeling that we're trying to instill looks like the feeling you get when you look at that photograph? Now remember, brand is all of it. It's the totality, again, of people's thoughts, feelings, experiences, their memories, relationships. And brand building is everything you do to create all of that, to create that experience. Branding, on the other hand, are the elements that support recognition of the brand. This could be the logo, your color palette, the design language you use, the tone of voice that you use in all of your communications. So for example, here's an illustrative Noetic Community College logo. How does this logo reflect Noetic Community College and its brand? Or does it? Does it match that photograph that we showed you on the previous slide? Think about that for a second when you're thinking about branding. And marketing is how the brand communicates through campaigns and channels, promotions, advertisements. For example, here's an illustrative Noetic Community College communication. You know, say it's a banner ad, say it's something on Instagram. What does this tell you about Noetic Community College and its brand? What experience would you expect to have as a student after seeing this communication? Let's look at all this another way. Think of your brand like the roots of a tree. Roots need to be strong and deep and really well cared for, right? Otherwise, no tree can grow. Think of branding as the trunk of the tree. For a tree to not only grow but flourish, the trunk needs to be strong and sturdy. Your branding emanates from your brand's roots. And the marketing is like branches and leaves. The branches are like your marketing plans and channels that enable you to reach your audience. The leaves are like your campaigns and communications, right? They're what your audience sees and experiences. So as you think through and complete your application, we encourage you to be strategic and creative about your school's tree. What you do or will do to create those strong brand roots, how you've developed or will develop a strong branding trunk from which all your marketing plans and communications can grow, and how you've communicated or will communicate with adult learners, the messages they want to hear and see, so your tree can be seen through the forest of trees, which are all the choices that students have for their higher education needs. You know, why would they want to choose your tree? We hope that quick overview helps you understand the power and importance of brand and how it differs from branding and marketing, but is absolutely connected to both of them. Think of your whole tree, that's brand building. Now, Mary's going to give you an overview of the challenge in the application itself.
Thanks, Annette, and hi, everyone. My name is Mary Lappin, and we're so excited that some of you have joined us today. Thank you. So we hope by now you've downloaded the application. If you haven't, as Shauna mentioned, here's another reminder. Please go ahead and download that application and the rules and then review them thoroughly. As Annette mentioned earlier, I'm not going to go through the entire application, but I do want to highlight a few key areas, starting with the eligibility requirements. So the $1 Million Community College Challenge is open to public, 2-year, nonprofit, regionally accredited community colleges in the United States. So this is for individual community colleges only. We've received several questions about consortia or a system application, but this grant is designed specifically for individual community college applicants. All the details for eligibility are in the rules and in the application. As Annette mentioned, we've saved time at the end of the webinar to answer your questions. So please feel free to go ahead and put them in the chat as you have them. I see already a few have come in, so thank you for that. And Shauna is collecting them as we go. So let's take a look at the timeline. This timeline is also available on the website and it's on the application. As you know, the application is currently open. Applications are due on March 15th by 11:59 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So although you can download the application to review it, you will need to complete that application online on the challenge website. And then on April 27th, we will contact the 10 finalists who have been invited to proceed to part 2 of the application process. Part 2 will include creating a video narrative about your college. And then to help set up our 10 finalists for success, our partner, Noetic Consultants, will provide some technical assistance. The 10 finalists have 3 opportunities to attend a 1-hour webinar. Those opportunities will be on May 2nd, 3rd, and 5th. The 10 finalists will then submit their video narratives on June 10th. Then the award recipients will be announced in August of this year. Again, if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. Now let's talk about how to apply. So looking at the application, like we said, first, make sure that you go ahead and read the application and the challenge rules thoroughly. Then when you're ready, you'll apply by completing the online application and submitting the supporting documents on the challenge website. Please note, you must complete the application in one setting. So we encourage you to prepare your responses ahead of time so you can then copy and paste them in. You will not be able to save and then come back to your application later. Another reminder, the applications are due no later than March 15th at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So we also have a checklist to use to guide you along the way. Good news is that by attending this webinar, you've already checked one box. So let's look at the application itself. What are we looking for? So generally speaking, across our comprehensive 11-question application, we are looking for data-supported strategic thinking about your college. So the application questions are designed with context and conciseness top of mind. Please tell us about your college and your community. We want to know what the resources look. We know that resources look different at each community college. We want to understand the context of your school. Again, please be concise. The first 10 questions have a 300-word limit. With that said, please add data and proof points wherever possible and appropriate. Now, to ensure that we have plenty of time to answer your questions, I just wanted to highlight a few questions in the application. So starting with the marketing plan, we realize that you may or may not have a formalized marketing plan. Whether you do or you don't, we want to know what you're currently doing in this space and why you're doing it. So said another way, we're looking for the strategic thinking behind any of your marketing efforts. Then looking at community description, this question is really important because we want to understand your community context. So please paint a comprehensive and accurate picture, including data, so that we can understand where your college is located. And then moving on to community needs. So in this question, we want to know what sets your college apart. We know that you're committed to student success, but specifically, what is exceptional about your college? What unique needs do you meet in your community? And then looking at student needs, here we're looking for a deep understanding of your students, what they want or need. So when we ask about your college's promise, this is not a reference to the College Promise programs. We're talking about what they will gain and experience if they attend your college, the promise that you make to deliver on that and how you deliver on that. Then looking at adult student proof, one final call out here is that in the adult student proof section, we want to know how you know that you can or have delivered on the promise that you make to your students. So we're looking for more than an anecdote or a student review. We're looking for substantial qualitative or quantitative proof points that you can provide. Now I want to talk about the final question. So the final question is really important and it does not have a word limit, but being clear and concise, again, is preferred. It is about your college's vision and how for $1 million, what you would do to transform your college's brand building efforts. We encourage you to look at your college through the eyes of prospective adult learners. So knowing that adult students have many options to choose from, ask yourself, what do they need to see, hear, interact with, experience, and understand about our college to know we are the right choice for them? We're looking for colleges that have strategic thinking and creativity and who embrace the idea that your brand is the whole student experience. Yes, external marketing campaigns are part of that, but what else? How would you use $1 million to transform your brand building efforts? So we provided a list of key areas to include in your response. Be sure to address each area, but also be sure to include any additional areas that are in your plan. So getting started, looking at marketing. This could include marketing campaigns or branding of the college on the campus and in the community. Looking at staffing, this could include hiring a full or part-time staff to build capacity. Then looking at campus events, this could include college engagement activities or programming, both in your community and on your campus. And then looking at enrollment management, this could include work that supports your strategic enrollment plan. Finally, looking at the last category, other, this could include, but is certainly not limited to, data tracking and data and tracking systems to support recruitment, marketing, also website redesign or other enhancements that you have to support your brand. So the scoring of this question requires you to answer all areas. So this is important, so I'll say it again. The scoring of this question requires you to answer all of these areas. So for instance, if you're not planning to hire staff, tell us that you're not planning to hire staff and why. Keep in mind that the $1 million winner will get 2 years to fully scale and implement their plan. So the answer to this question should be implemented within that grant period. Again, there is no word limit, but we do encourage you to be clear and concise. Explain to us your what and your why. So I hope that overview was helpful for you. As you're thinking about some questions that you may have, we wanted to walk through a few questions that we've already received since announcing the challenge. Annette's going to join me to talk through them. Hi, Annette.
So, hi again. So can I start and save my application?
Good question. So no, you can't. Your application must be completed online in one setting. So we recommend using that PDF version of the application to prepare your response ahead of time.
Got it. And how do I know my application has been submitted successfully?
So you will know in 2 ways. So after submitting your application online, you will receive a confirmation pop-up. The grant contact will also receive a confirmation email. So I recommend double checking that grant contact email when you put it on the application. That's what we'll go by.
And how will I know if my college is selected as a finalist?
Yeah, so grant contacts and community college presidents will be notified via email on April 27th.
What if my college is not selected?
So if you're not selected, grant contacts will also receive an email. Again, please double check that grant contact email when you put it on your application.
And what happens if my college wins?
So if your college wins, all colleges receiving financial awards will have to complete the Lumina Foundation grant process.
And what can the grant money actually be used for?
So that's a great question. So the grant money can be used to support brand building and strategic marketing efforts. I encourage you to go ahead and take a look at the official rules for more details about what that means.
And the time frame of the grant?
So if your college wins the $1 million, your grant period is August 2022 through August 2024. For the 9 $100,000 winners, your grant period is August 2022 through August 2023. But just a reminder, everyone should be submitting their application as if they're receiving $1 million. So if you are selected for one of the 9 $100,000 awards, you can just go ahead and scale back your plan to meet the $100,000 budget.
How does Lumina define adult student?
Yeah, thank you, Annette. We've heard this question a lot. So we define adult students as 25 or older. So though we certainly understand that you have younger students with very adult lives on your campus, for our definition, it's students who are 25 or older.
Got it. And who should I contact if I have any questions after today?
So if you have questions, we have an email address that is just for you. It is challenge@luminafoundation.org. As Shauna mentioned, we are standing by that email address and we will get back to you very quickly.
Great, thank you.
So now I'm going to turn it over to Shauna to review the questions that you have submitted.
Okay, they're coming in. And I see a number, so I'm going to start and kind of work my way down here. There was one question that actually was related to something that you just did, that came up in our last webinar that I wanted to note. That the grant period that was just discussed, the grant funds will be given in lump sum. So that didn't come up just yet, but I think that's important to note, as Mary just said, that you will need to use your grant funds during that period. So you will be given that money in one lump sum. And then, of course, there'll be report out requirements from there. Okay. And then one other question that came up as well, I think it's really important, and we'll go through all the questions here, was related, it's another question that we received before related to that 300-word limit. Someone had asked us if they could just copy and paste links to larger documents in that period, and the answer is no. Stick to the 300-word limit. Yeah, we absolutely will not be clicking to go to multiple page documents for those answers. So please stick to the 300-word limit on those first 10 questions. All righty. So first question, someone wants to know if their college already has a strong brand and their enrollment is increasing, and they're currently working on, with PR marketing agency, is this challenge a good fit for them? And I would say, maybe not. If you don't feel there's any room for you to transform your brand or to move forward, then that might not be the challenge for you. I think you have to really answer that by looking at question 11, which is, how will you use $1 million to transform your college's brand? It doesn't mean you couldn't be doing some work already. We suspect that most colleges are doing some work already. So without knowing the extent, if it's that we feel like we're set, we've got it, and we don't need any help, then this is probably not the right challenge opportunity for you. If it's a situation of where we've done some work, we know that we could go deeper, we could do more. If we had some resources and some technical assistance, then we could provide a really compelling reason for how this would transform our efforts, then we absolutely would encourage you to complete the application. And then this one is based on this question. I'll throw it out to Mary. Will the selected colleges be chosen based on need or extraordinary ideas, or their or COVID impact?
That's a great question. So the challenge winners will be chosen really based off the questions that we ask on the application. So if you're looking at the application, really what we're looking for is that strategic thinking and the vision. So we want to know how this money would be transformational to your college. So need is definitely there, but I wouldn't say that that's something that we're really zeroing in on. We're looking for what your great ideas are and where there's transformation. And we also don't ask specifically about COVID-19 repercussions in the application. But I would say that it's certainly something that's top of mind for all of us. So including that, if it's appropriate in your application, is always a good thing as well.
Alrighty. And then the next question is, reporting expectations for awardees. So what I can say is that Mary had mentioned earlier that there is a Lumina Foundation grant process. So anyone who receives a financial grant from the Lumina Foundation does have to fill out a formal grant agreement, as you would with any foundation. And so within that, there will be a midterm and a final report, and of course a budget that would be required at that point. There is no budget required with the application. So that I haven't seen at the bottom yet, in case that's come up. But we would encourage you, again, to be thoughtful about your responses and how you would use funds, but you don't have to put together a formalized budget for the actual grant application. Your dates for the reporting depend on whether or not you are one of the colleges that receives $100,000, because that grant period would be 1 year, or whether you're the college that receives the $1 million, because that grant period is 2 years. So at a minimum, there is a mid-year report, a final grant report, and of course, a budget that would be due with the application, with the actual formal grant process application, and of course, a final budget report that is required of all of our grantees at a minimum. Okay, and is there a cost or cost share when applying? No. So that was an easy one to answer. And this one, okay, I'm going to throw this out to so Annette and Mary. This one is for you. So please provide clarification on what is meant by making a promise to adult students. You touched this a little bit, but I think this question goes a little bit deeper. We are unsure how such a promise is made through marketing.
Right. A promise that you make from a brand perspective is usually driven by some kind of deep insight about your audience. So if if a brand, if an audience, I'm not going to go community college, let me step outside community college and maybe this will be easier. If an apparel company promises, or the audience wants, you know, apparel, sports apparel that makes them look good, feel good, and run faster, right? Then the promise that a brand who considers themselves a sports apparel company, the promise that they need to make needs to satisfy what that audience is looking for, right? So it needs to be connected to that. And that, you know, generally speaking, is called positioning. How are you positioning yourself in your market to satisfy a need that your audience say they have? So that's that promise. And then, how you back up that promise. What is it about that? What do you deliver? What do you have to offer that would make somebody believe your promise? Right? So if you're a school and you want your audience, your students want, the most flexible education possible, then what promise are you going to make to them that says, yes, we can deliver that for you. And here are the things that we have that support that. So that's what we mean by promise. And it's not just about the programs or anything. The promise could be the experience that audience is looking for, that adult learner is looking for. I hope that helps.
Okay. And so we did answer this a couple of times, but yes, the recording will be up by Monday. So we'll have a chance to go through all of the Q&A, of course, from both webinars, and we'll have some additional answers there in case there were questions asked on our previous webinar that aren't asked today. So that'll be up on Monday. Let's see here. This question is about allowable personnel expenses. So provide more specification about allowable personnel expenses. Brand building infrastructure could be pretty far reaching in an institution. So we actually, I would say, go to the application and kind of read that. I mean, we have, as a foundation, we do say there are certain things you cannot do with our funds. So we put that in there. I do believe in the application, when you read it, we do note that you could hire part-time or full-time if it's related to this work, that position. So that is included in there. And there's some additional specifications there. So that's kind of will give you the spirit of what you can and can't do, as well as what is strictly prohibited, based on our nonprofit status and based on the spirit of this grant. So I would say that, yes, you are correct. Brand building infrastructure could be pretty far reaching. So tell us what you want to do. So it's a great question and statement. And I think the person asking this question, you're actually touching on something. This was intentionally designed so that you could tell us. We didn't put a lot of parameters around there. We had to put some, right? Because we couldn't just give it away and say, do what you want. But we tried to get as close as we could to giving you some great flexibility here to say, hey, here's what's in our minds. Here's what we would like to do. If we had $1 million, like, this is what we would do. And this is why. So we really encourage you with that thinking to tell us exactly what you would do if you had the $1 million to transform your brand. And it could be pretty far reaching in your institution. So again, the same question about if you started some of this process, it's not yet completed. I guess this is related to, could you apply? I have to go back to you as the institution to say, if If receiving these grant funds wouldn't be transformational to your institution at all, then this is probably not the right challenge for you. If you actually could answer the questions and you could envision a way and you could articulate an answer that's really focused in on how these funds would be transformational to your brand building efforts, we want to absolutely see that application. So please send it in. So again, I can't answer that question for you. That's really dependent on where you are and what your goals are as an institution and how much work you've done. But again, this challenge was not designed with the idea in mind that a college has done absolutely nothing. All colleges have done something. We know that every college has different resources, so not everyone has the same staffing or even the same financial resources to do extensive marketing efforts, but we know that everyone has done something. So we really will kind of leave that to you to tell us how this would be transformational. Okay. So I think this next question kind of is also along those lines. Is this grant aimed at institutions just getting into marketing or asking further? Again, so same thing what I just said. This grant was developed with the idea that we really wanted to help community colleges. If you had the resources and you could put in place that bigger vision for what you wanted to put in place to transform your brand efforts, what would you do? And we wanted to not only know that, but we also wanted to be a part of resourcing that. So that's how we would answer that question. All righty. And so I'm going to throw this question over to Mary and Annette. Okay. Please further clarify regarding marketing that supports retention of students. So we understand marketing that supports enrollment or re-enrollment of previous students. We are a bit puzzled about what Lumina is expecting from marketing that targets retention of current students. We understand that internal verbal and written communications by faculty, advisors, and other staff are used to provide students with information related to overcoming barriers to their retention. It's marketing, and as it's generally understood to promote retention of current students. So I hope I understand that correctly. Did you all understand the question as I read it?
Yeah, and I think maybe if I can make a quick distinction, and then Annette, I'll toss it over to you to talk more about the branding and marketing piece of it, because one distinction I want to make is we talk a lot, this person talked a lot about marketing, and that's definitely a big piece of what this work is, but kind of the next step and what we're looking for with this challenge in particular is the brand building component. So it's the student experience, really like kind of walking through the entire experience of what it is for our students to enroll, why they enroll, and why they remain enrolled. So Annette is the expert, so I'm going to let her talk much more about what branding actually means, but I just wanted to make that distinction very quickly.
Right, right. You know, there's something that's really incredible when you do build a strong brand and you have, we talk about a noetic building a brand from the inside out. And the inside is inside your school. So I think if you have, the professors or teachers talking to students or staff talking to students, in what ways are they living the brand? Are they communicating in the way that your brand needs them to communicate to create that experience for the students? So I think anything that can, I would absolutely consider that marketing. And any tools and resources that you might provide faculty, that you might provide advisors and staff would be, brand building activities, because they are walking around needing to live your brand just as much as your marketing externally needs to represent your brand. I hope that gets at it. If not, put in another question. But we do believe branding is on the inside just as much as it's on the outside.
Thanks, Annette and Mary. And I think also, if I'm not mistaken, and I don't have the application open in front of me, I do believe kind of in there, in the text somewhere in there, that we do talk about internal and external marketing efforts. So we do talk about those within the college as well as focused externally outside the college. All righty. Let me scroll down here. And I think we answered this earlier. Mary, you answered this around definition of adult learner. So for our purposes, we are focusing on 25 and older. Now, let me kind of dig in here. And so Mary, tack one here if you feel like that I missed something here. So this idea that our focus, our emphasis is that we want colleges to specifically think about their adult learners. But we know that you have a very diverse demographic, profile for your student populations, right? So you will have some younger students. And that's okay if your efforts help all students at the college, but we know that traditionally we've spent a lot of efforts. I'm a former practitioner at a community college. When I was at community colleges, we spent a lot more efforts in high schools and some of those more traditional ways of bringing in students to the college. So we really do want you to think about adults, their needs, as Annette has kind of focused and talked about several times, your brand and how it speaks to adult students, and whether they're in your workforce division or they're in your transfer programs, that's fine. We hope they're represented in all of them. But we really do want you to think about adults specifically, because it's important that we do think about what they need and that you're conscious of whether or not your efforts are actually speaking to not only adult students, but when you think about the number of community college students who actually work and attend part-time, we really want you to broaden up beyond the traditional high school age focus. Okay, let's see. The other piece, so I think you touched on this too, in the last question when you went through, answer all of those highlighted areas, and then there was a bucket for other. And so, it says, what is other for again? Mary, what is other for?
Yeah, so that's a great question. Other is, so some of the examples that I gave were some like data tracking systems, additional marketing pieces, but I'm going to say that like other is anything else that you can come up with to support your brand building. And we are really looking, we intentionally gave you an other category because we want to know what other creative ideas you have. So like I said, like a data tracking system is an example. It is certainly not a definitely go do this. It's what else do you think would support the brand building at your institution?
Okay. And this next question, I think, is related to something I just answered. It is fine if your marketing plan, your marketing plan for your college is much broader. Certainly we'd like to know, if do you have a plan? What are some of those areas that you're focusing on in the plan? And certainly if you have within that plan efforts that focus specifically on adult students, that would be a good thing to highlight as well. But again, no penalty or anything like that. If you're focusing on your entire college, that's okay. We just want you to tell us in those questions where we're specifically focusing in on how you're thinking about adult students in particular. Okay. All righty. And so Mary, will a copy of I think this is the application submission, be available once a college submits their application?
Oh, that's a good question. So if I'm understanding correctly, the institution will not be able to see their application after they submit it. So once they submit it, it goes back to our backend portal.
Yes. Okay. And all right. So again, if there's any questions about your college eligibility, send those over to our challenge email, the challenge@luminafoundation.org, because I have a number of questions and I want to get through all of those broad questions for everyone. And so there was a question about whether or not this will be a one-time opportunity or offered again next year. So at this point, it is offered now. We don't know. So right now, what we'd like to do is really focus on the success of this effort. And if we are able to offer it again, we certainly would love to. We don't know, though, that we would be able to offer it again at this point. However, we want to make sure that everyone shows interest and submits those applications, and we may learn a whole lot that informs our next iterations of strategy. So we think that we're going to learn a lot from this. Also, not only just the colleges receiving awards benefiting from that, but as a foundation, we certainly hope to benefit a lot from learning from you all who are submitting your applications. Okay. Oh, okay. So, so the question here is, do they have to submit their college's application through their foundation? And I think that just depends on your college. So this actually hasn't come up yet, unless I've missed this question down there. If your college doesn't require you to submit the application through your college's foundation, you can submit it directly from the college. Some colleges submit grant applications to us directly, and they get the funding directly. Other colleges, and this may be further down, and I haven't gotten there yet. In other colleges, we know that sometimes the foundation office is the arm in which we'll submit grant applications, or funds have to be paid to the foundation office, and then they get dispersed to the college. If you are one of those colleges in which your foundation office has to be the receiver of the grant funds, then what we want for you to do is to note that on your application. The college still has to fill out the application because the college has to do the work. The foundation office is not going to do the work. They may be receiving of the funds, recipients of the funds. So what we want you to do, though, is to include the tax ID information and the W-9, though, for the foundation. Whoever is going to receive the funds for your college, if it's directly the college, then include that information. If it is the foundation office, then provide us with the W-9 and the tax ID number for the foundation office, but the college still needs to fully complete the application. The president of the college still needs to provide the letter of support. You'll just note in your application that should you receive an award, that Shauna Davis Foundation will need to be the recipient of funds for Shauna Davis Community College. So just make that note in there. Okay. Okay. Alrighty, so I'm going to move down here. I think we've answered that one a couple of times. Yep, we just answered that one. Okay, we've answered that one. Okay, if our college is developed branding and marketing plan. Oh, okay. So this is a good question. So if our college is awarded, will our developed branding and marketing plan be considered public domain? And if so, will we need to provide materials to be published? So if I think I understand, we will not be publishing your marketing plan. That is not our intent. The video submission, however, that you do submit, if you are selected as a finalist, and you all correct me if I'm wrong here, that the video that you submit, the finalists would submit, would actually be linked to the challenge website, so that would be public. However, we are not collecting and or distributing or sharing your college's marketing plans. Okay. Our college recently. Okay. Yes. So eligibility, of course, criteria are in there, and so I would say look at the eligibility criteria in the application. I don't want to misstate exactly how it's said, but we specifically speak to who can apply and whether or not being a recipient of any other grant is an issue. So look at the application; it'll tell you everything you need to know right there. Okay. And does their definition of adult learner also include? Yes. So again, when we say adult students, we mean anyone who's a student at your college. So your non-credit students are students. So again, we're talking about your entire college. We are not specifically talking about students enrolled in a credit pathway. We're talking about student who's enrolled in any sort of pathway at your college that would lead to a credential. Certification, certificate, degree, applied degree, transfer degree. So we just adult students. What is your focus on adult students at your institution? So think about this holistically, not as one division or another. Think about this as a college. Okay. So any specific questions related to your college, we're going to ask you to send to that challenge email box. We're going to answer a few more here. Let me make sure we get down. Okay. Okay. So, Mary, can you use funds if you wanted to get additional technical assistance outside of the technical assistance provided in the grant?
So generally speaking, yes, we would need a little bit more information about how that aligns with your brand building efforts. So it's not a blanket yes, but I would say that generally speaking, go ahead and put that in your application if it's something that would be part of your plan.
Okay. 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 Okay, gotcha. Okay. All right, so this question is, okay, so there was a question around, can faculty be compensated for participating in professional development related activities related to this project? I read what is noted in the RFP, but it also just noted that people associated with the project can be paid. Does this mean strictly staff working in a marketing communication capacity? I don't have the language open. I do believe we included in that application that if whatever you're including, if it's not related to your brand building and marketing efforts, then general college expenses would not be eligible. So I would say go back to, because I believe we did actually answer this question in there. If you are, what I would say to that, and Mary, if you have anything else to add here, is that if your work is related to actually carrying out the transformational brand building activities, then you just need to include it, and you need to clearly state how it is connected to those efforts. But I would go by what we actually put in the application, because I think that we did actually address some specific language around where you can cover faculty salaries or things. I believe we said if it's not directly related to those efforts, then it's not covered. So I would go back to that specifically.
Shauna, I would just reinforce what you said about noting it explicitly. In the last question, there is no word limit, and anything that you want to kind of add to that's under your brand building, just make it really clear and explicit for us as to what the connection is, because that will help us as we review your application. Or the reviewers, I should say.
Okay, thank you. Okay, alrighty. And I'm just going to go down. This one is around technical assistance. And so we won't go deeply into that. There will be some technical assistance that will be provided to all 10 of the colleges, and then the college that during the fall of the grant period, and the first fall, this fall of 22. And then the $1 million winner has a longer grant window, and that $1 million winner will have additional technical assistance provided because they have a longer grant window. Okay, and we have addressed the degree and non-degree. Would this also apply to continuing education? So yes, again, so let me read this. So we have it for, since we have addressed the degree seeking and non-degree seeking students, would this also apply to continuing education efforts such as law enforcement, EMT, and dental hygiene classes that focus on adult learners looking to help their careers and help them make a better living? So again, yes, so if you are focused on adult learners earning credentials, and a credential at your college could be a degree, it could be a certificate, could be a certification. If you are focusing on adult learners, we want you to think about, how your college is focused on adult learners. So we really do want you to think holistically. The intent here was not so much to think about how one division of the college thinks about promoting their brand, the brand of the college to adult learners. The real intent here is to think about, students experience your college. They don't make these distinctions that we make between credit and non-credit and other types of organizational distinctions that we make. They'll say, I attended Shauna Davis Community College, and this was my experience with that college. So we do want you to think about yourself as a college, and certainly everything that encompasses that college is a part of that college's brand. Okay. All righty. And okay, so we hit those. So I think we hit most of those questions there in the last couple minutes here. What we'll do then is we'll talk about some next steps. If you think of something else that we didn't cover today, please feel free to send that to the challenge inbox. That was challenge@luminafoundation.org. You're gonna get tired of hearing me say that, and read the application. So we're just gonna go over a couple of next steps for you. So again, going to the luminafoundation.org /challenge website. If you haven't already done that, go there. Make sure that you've downloaded that application. As Mary said, you do have to complete the application online. You cannot start, save, and come back. So again, we really encourage you to maybe use a Word doc and type everything, spell check it, do your word count, get all that together, and then copy and paste it once you're ready to submit in the online application. And you want to do that by March 15th at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time. Okay. And if you want some additional resources, because we realize that every college is doing different things. And again, not every college has, in-depth marketing know-how or resources at their campus. So we did curate some additional resources that are on that challenge website that help to explain branding and, building your brand and branding versus marketing, all of those sorts of things. So go there. There's some quick reads, a couple of short podcasts. Just take you a couple of minutes, and that might be really helpful to maybe have you sit there and read some of that or listen to it and think about your application before you actually hit submit, because it might open your eyes up or get your creative juices flowing there maybe in a little bit of a different way. All right, so we're going to leave you with just a couple of recommendations here that will help you. We call this the secret sauce to completing your application. And so the first one there is that we want you to be strategic. That's really what's important. Tactics, are necessary in life, but we want strategy is what we really want here. So communicate how aligned your marketing objectives are with your school's enrollment and growth goals. Again, the intent here is not that you take $1 million and run a bunch of TV ads. That's not the goal. The goal is that you are doing brand building work, marketing, paid marketing, external marketing efforts are a part of that. It is not all of that. So we want you to really think about this in a deeper way. Okay. We want you to be audience centric. So remember, to see your college through the eyes of prospective adult students. So someone asked earlier, yes, you want to continue to cultivate relationships and communicate and market to your current students. Absolutely. But we certainly know that within the service areas of community colleges, there are many more adults whose choice is no college or some other college. And we want you to think about those prospective adult students and, think about it through their eyes and the communities that you serve. All right, and we want you to be unique. So what differentiates your college from all others? Every college is focused on student success, and they should be. So what we want you to do is dig deeper when you're answering these questions. Don't just tell us we're focused on the success of all of our students. We might get 200 applications that say that. So what we want to know is what differentiates your college from all others. And that's when we're asking you about being really clear about, who you are, what you do, and what's excellent about your institution. We want to know, and we want you to explain it to us. And then be creative. So communicate, an aspirational and strategic vision for how your college would use that $1 million. This is the transformational question, right? So how would this transform your efforts? Be creative here. You have some license here to say, what would you do if you had the resources to do it? Like, just put it out there and let us know. You may not know how to do everything that you've put out there, but we really want to know what you're thinking and what you would do in this application. And the last thing here is that, focus on excellence. And we do ask that specific question. We say, well, what makes you excellent? What's really great about your college? And so that's really important. If you ever stop to ask yourself, what do we do a lot of things, but what is excellent about this institution? What's excellent about attending this institution? What's excellent about what happens to your graduates? Really think about that and communicate that, who you are, who you serve, where you want to take your college next and why. So tell us a compelling story. We don't know right offhand your college context. We don't know the history of your college. We don't know the differences and where your college sits and opportunities and students and the things that you've done or the things your college has transformed or created or experienced. So we are really depending on you to be great storytellers and tell a compelling story about your institution so that we can really understand, where your college lives, what your college aspires to do, what your college currently does, and how this would actually help transform your efforts. All righty. So with that, for the 10th time, I'm going to tell you, if you have any additional questions, please send those over to challenge@luminafoundation.org, to that inbox. That is challenge@luminafoundation.org. And we will be highly responsive and someone will answer your questions. And then also, if you have not done so, please visit the luminafoundation.org/challenge website. There's lots of resources there. With our last couple of minutes, if there are no other questions, we just wanted to thank you all for attending today. And oh, there's one more question. Yes, so you are not limited on question 11. Remember, your last question is not limited. So that is where you go for the gusto on the last question, where you tell us, let it all hang out on that one. So you are not limited. The previous questions are helping us with context. That last question about how would you use these funds to transform your efforts and why, that's where you really tell us your story and how you would use it and why. So that's it. So thank you for pointing that out. And I wanted to reiterate that last question does not have a word limit. But be clear, if you give us a dissertation, it might take us a while to get through them. We want to get through them all and notify you. So don't write a dissertation for us. Just give us the answers. So thank you again so much for joining us. We're excited. We're honored that you took the time and certainly thankful for your interest in this. And we look forward to reading your responses and learning from you. And on behalf of Lumina Foundation, we thank you for your interest, and we are highly supportive of the work that you do. We believe in the work that you do. And thank you so much for your time and your efforts.